The Anglo-Zulu War was a conflict between the British Empire and the Zulu Kingdom, fought in 1879. This battle occurred near the Intombe River in the British colony of Natal. After the attack on Rorke's Drift and an attempted attack by Zulu impis early in February, the German settlement of Lüneburg decided to logger their environment. The Zulus posed a serious threat to the area, as indicated by a vicious night attack on the area on the night of the 11th of February. Fearing a repeat of the attack, the British decided to send for companies of the 80th Regiment under Major Charles Tucker to the garrison Lüneburg to help in this regard. In late February 1879, a convoy of 18 wagons carrying 90,000 rounds of ammunition and other supplies was sent from Leidenburg to resupply the garrison, and from the Transvaal border was escorted by a single company. By the 5th of March, the convoy was still 8 miles from Lüneburg, having been hampered by rains, which caused the rivers to swell and the ground to soften. Fearing a Zulu attack, Major Tucker sent an order for the company commander to reach Lüneburg that night at any cost. The company commander took this literally, abandoned the wagons and proceeded on. The escort had succeeded in having 6 wagons reach the opposite bank of the Intombe, 4 miles from Lüneburg. 6 other wagons were 3 miles further back. On the 6th of March, a party dispatched by Tucker only succeeded in pulling free a wagon which was trapped in a drift, returning to the town that night. On the 7th of March, Tucker dispatched Captain David Moriarty with 100 men to gather together all the wagons and logger them on the bank of the Intombe, and then gave orders for them to wait until the river went down. On the 11th of March, Tucker inspected the logger at the river, but found it to be poorly constructed, not being impressed with the inverted V-shape that the wagons were arranged, with the base at the river. Other flaws in the arrangements were viewed by Tucker as affording no protection whatever in the event of the Zulus attacking in numbers. Furthermore, the garrison was weakened by being divided by a river with 30 of its number loggered on the other bank. On the night of the 11th of March 1879, 2 sentries were stationed 20 yards from the logger. However, their vision range was only 50 yards due to rise to their front. At 3:30 a.m. on the 12th of March, a shot was heard close to the camp. However, the men returned to their beds after Moriarty decided that it was nothing. An hour and a half later, a sentry on the far bank saw, to his horror, through a clearing in the mist, a huge mass of Zulus advancing silently on the camp. He at once fired his rifle and gave the alarm. The sentries on the other side did the same. Of course, the men were up in a moment, some men sleeping under the wagons and some in the tents. But before the men were in their positions, the Zulus had fired a volley, thrown down their guns, and were around the wagons and on top of them, and even inside with the cattle, almost instantly. The Zulus so quickly did come. There was no defense on the part of British men. It was simply each man fighting for his life. Being one of the first to die, Moriarty was struck in the back with an assegai as he charged out of his tent, shooting dead 3 Zulus with a revolver. He was shot while trying to climb the logger. His last words were, "I am done. Fire away, boys." However, few managed to put up any resistance, sharing a similar fate. As dawn approached, some survivors escaped across the river, with troops on the far bank providing as much covering fire as possible. Upon what survivors they could see reaching the Lumberg side of the river, Lieutenant Henry Harwood, Moriarty's second-in-command, gave the order to withdraw upon seeing several hundred Zulus crossing the river. No sooner had he done this, when he grabbed the first horse he spotted and fled, abandoning his men. This left the survivors under the command of Colour Sergeant Anthony Clark Booth. For 3 miles, the Zulus pursued the group of around 40 survivors. Whenever they drew closer, several of the bolder troops, along with Booth, stopped to deliver a volley, which dispersed their pursuers. Many men who split up from the group were killed. The others made it to Raby's farm, around 2 miles from Lumberg, where the Zulus broke off pursuit. The wagons were looted, and all the ammunition and supplies were carried off by the Zulus or destroyed. Booth was rewarded with the Victoria Cross. Harwood arrived at Lumberg and frantically informed Tucker of what had transpired. The Major quickly ordered all his mounted troops to accompany him to the camp and ordered a further 150-foot soldier to follow. Tucker and his mounted force spotted dense masses of Zulus leaving the scene of the battle as they approached. At the camp, they discovered one soldier who had made a miraculous escape by being carried down the river and then making his way back to the camp. He and 2 African wagon drivers were the only survivors they found. Aftermath. The Battle of Intombe starkly contrasted with Rorke's Drift. At Intombe, 500 to 800 Zulu warriors quickly overwhelmed over 100 British soldiers, while at Rorke's Drift, the same number of British troops held off 3,000 to 4,000 Zulus for nearly a day. Intombe clash highlighted the vulnerability of the British supply lines, showing that, if the Zulus targeted these weak points, they could potentially stop or repel any invading British forces.